Hi, I'm Patricia Anthony, and welcome to the Bethel Park Art Exhibition. Today, our featured artist is Mr. Steve Leonardi. We are visiting his very unique studio located in a lovely wooded area in Prosperity, Pennsylvania, right outside of Washington, PA. This is a show you will not want to miss, and if you're an artist out there, this is a must.
I'm Steve Leonardi. I'm very happy to be here today, and I hope that we can provide some information for both artists and non-artists alike about digital printing, the process of giclée printing, and what might be possible with the current world of digital technology and mating that to the traditional world of art and old photographs. So let's get started. What I'm going to do first is tell you a little bit about myself. I've been an artist since about 1975. I got out of college and couldn't find a job, so I did exactly what most people did back then, was I looked for a job and looked for a job and looked for a job, couldn't find one, and decided that I would take that moment in my life and feel free to fail. So I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and so I started drawing pictures, and till 1979, I drew and sold pictures of wildlife subjects in pen and ink. I sold original paintings rarely. I sold prints of those original drawings often. And that became the business model for how I was going to make money as an artist after I saw that I could have some modicum of success. So the next iteration of my art career was about 1979, when I decided that after much public pressure to expand what I was doing, I decided that I would explore the world of watercolors. And so from then until about 3 years ago, I painted watercolors. I was a watercolor wildlife artist and sold thousands and thousands of prints of my work, and many more originals now, because as I got more experience, I got a little bit more elevation in the world of wildlife art, and I was able to market some original paintings also. But again, prints remain the core of my marketing strategy as far as making money as an artist went. Now, one thing I'd like to, if I have any artists out there that are watching, one of the things that I want to do is point out that it's very, very dangerous for an artist to connect in any way financial success or financial matters with artistic success or artistic matters. Your painting or your sculpture or your drawing is no more effective if you sell it than if it sits in the basement. It is what it is, and the beauty of art is in the creation. The power of art is in its emotional content, and it's very, very difficult to put a price tag on that. Those are marketing functions that are served by marketing forces, not by artistic forces. So if you're hoping to find out ways that you can be a better artist by selling more, then I think that's not going to happen. But if you're hoping to find a way that you can maybe look for some strategies that are going to sell some of your art independent of your ability as an artist, then maybe you've come to the right place. So let's move to the last phase of my work, which is 3 or 4 years ago. I thought that I had reached the limits of what I was going to be able to do as a watercolorist. And so what I tried to do was think for about a year of what my next phase was going to be, and I settled on equestrian art. So I moved from watercolors straight into acrylics and oil painting, and fooled around with that for a while until I came up with a style that I liked, and now I'm painting all equestrian subjects in a blended watercolor using a impressionistic realistic style, which looks very almost hyper realistic from a distance, but upon close inspection, it really sort of deconstructs into individual brushstrokes, so it's very easy to see what's happening. And I've got some examples of all this stuff that we can take a look at that a little bit later, and we're going to move straight and right into digital printing. So the first thing we're going to do is get away from the art and move into people who have old photographs. Now, almost everybody has an old photograph, a damaged photograph, slides, things like that they have laying around and don't know what to do with them. And some of these will actually gain importance as years go by, but nothing's done with them. So as time goes on, old photographs, things happen to them. They get cracked, they get water damage, they get dirty, things like that happen. And one of the byproducts of the digital printing industry has been the ability to restore photographs to their former glory or even go well beyond that. So what I've got today is I've got a demonstration of an old Ansco Chrome large format slide. I've got that right here. And that's a picture of my wife when she was about 12 years old. So we'll date that at less than 100 years old. And we'll say it's about 50 years old. That's a picture of my wife when she was a little girl. So we're going to take that, and I'm not going to walk through each step individually, but the first thing we'll do is scan that in a scanner, and that will create a digital file out of that picture, and we're going to send that to the computer. And I've got that up here for you to take a look at how that came out of the scanner, which looks very much like the original. I titled this one Faded Kathy because that's how she looks when she's faded away after 40 years or 50 years. And you can see that sunlight and environmental factors have damaged this print considerably. So the things that I need to do in a digital format is I need to restore the color, I need to take care of scratches or anything like that that I can find in there that don't look right. And it's pretty clean, except there are some dust. There's quite a bit of dust on it. I'll remove that with a filter, and then I will expand and reconstruct the color range so that I get a full range of 256 values and that we restore its former glory. Now, I'm not sure what this looked like 40 or 50 years ago, so I don't really know what my target is, so I'm just going to try to make it look good. And this is what it will look like after we work on it. Okay. And you can see that there's quite a bit of difference between these two pictures. Now, having a digital file, one of the things that is sort of a paradox about digital photography is that it's now easy for everyone to take pictures. We can fix them with computers. We can make them better with computers. We can store thousands and thousands of them on microscopic spaces. But how do we look at them? How do we enjoy them? How do we use them in our lives if they're all filed away as digital files somewhere? So the answer to that is we need to print them. And we need to print them accurately. We need to print them so they don't fade like the original photographs would. So that's what we're going to do now. With the advent of digital printing, we started with a process called giclée printing, which is from the Iris Printing Company in France. They started the first large format art-oriented digital printers. They were very, very expensive. They've since gone out of business, and the word giclée printing now applies to any of these large format, high quality ink and paper substrate printers. These are all RGB, aqueous-based printers, although that they are waterproof when they come out of the printer, and we think that they look really good. The digital prints, the best digital prints, are superior to every form of old-fashioned photography. They are longer lasting, have a wider color gamut, and are more pleasing to the eye. Plus, we can print on a variety of surfaces from canvas to fine art papers to thin poster paper. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to print, actually we'll print both of these. We'll print both of these and we can compare them. And I want to check and make sure that my printer is on, but I'll take care of that in a second. First thing we're going to do is set up the printing. Now, each print that I do will be set up so that the computer will know what paper I'm printing on. There's an individual profile written for every print, every piece of paper that I work with, so that the printer will know exactly what it's printing on. Because it will look different if it prints on canvas than if it printed on paper, unless it knew what corrections to apply, and we'll handle that through the use of a profile. First, I'll create a new picture here. We'll make it, we're going to print something 44 inches by 12 inches. We'll create a sheet of paper. We'll turn the faded Kathy sideways and drag her over here. And we'll take the fixed Kathy, turn her sideways, drag her over here. And now we're ready to print this. So this is going to involve setting a bunch of settings that have to do with profiles, ink limiters, and telling the computer how to talk to the printer. If they speak the same language, we might get a really good print. If they don't speak the same language, I know we won't get a print. And this protocol that we use so that the printer and the computer can talk to each other is called color profiling and color management. It takes a little while for the computer to finish rasterizing the file. What it's doing when it rasterizes the file, it lines up about 50 million pieces of information in a row in single file that it can send to the printer. Then the printer will accept them. Once it accepts them, puts them in its buffer, then that'll move to the printing queue and it's ready to print. It'll start printing, a couple fans will come on, and we'll be good to go. And now we just heard something come on, it's getting ready to start. While we're waiting for this, I want to address some of the things that artists might want to consider, but these are also relevant for people like sculptors, authors, small business people of any ilk can sort of think about what I'm about to say. And that is that I've determined that there are 5 separate aspects to people who make a living from any profession, especially any profession that has to do with the arts. And in order, they are: the first thing that any artist needs to do is we need to do research. And that can include anything from going out and taking photographs to reading books, to going on trips, to driving around the country, to lying in bed and thinking about what you're going to paint next. It can be any of those things. But without that research, without that thinking about new ideas, new ways to do things, and new subject matter, pretty soon the artist's thought inkwell will dry up, and there won't be any more good paintings coming out of that artist. The second thing, which is the most obvious thing, is that an artist has to be able to paint, has to be able to produce the product that's going to be the basis for whatever they're going to do. And the third thing that an artist has to do, and this is where it starts to get distasteful, this is where left and right brain people start to come in conflict, and that is that the artist must pay attention to business matters. There are tax licenses that need to be obtained, sales tax licenses in every state in which you want to sell your work. There's all kinds of things you're going to have to pay attention to as far as the business of being in business. It's probably a good idea for an artist to contact an attorney and just go over what they're about to do and make sure that they're in compliance with everything that they need to do. Because those nice hungry people from the state will come around and find out what you're doing in no time, in no short order, and then you'll be liable for all those things. And then the next thing you need to do is produce. Many artists don't think about production, so they'll do a nice painting, but then they have no idea how to get it framed, how to get it matted, how to present it for sale, how to take care of all that stuff. In my case, it's compounded by the fact that I sell lots and lots of prints. So if I'm selling prints, then I need to figure out how I'm going to market those, in what format I'm going to market them. Are they going to be matted? Are they going to be, who's going to cut the mat board? Where am I going to get the mat board? All that stuff I have to figure out. And then last but not least, and most intimidating for most artists, is a marketing plan. And even a marketing plan of ignoring the marketing plan is a marketing plan. It just might not be a very effective marketing plan. So every artist has to have a marketing plan if they expect to sell some work. And those 5 things, if you look at those 5 things as being a merry-go-round that cycle around and you work through them all the time, but they have to be balanced. If you get out of balance, if you put too much weight on any one section of the merry-go-round, it's going to stop. So you have to keep that balanced. You have to spend as much time on any of those things as you do anything else. And that's one of the things that artists can, a lot of us have a very hard time doing that. And the printer is printing. As you can watch the head that moves across, I think there's several thousand, maybe more than that, 20,000 nozzles on that print head. Some of them will repeat. They'll fire on top of each other. It uses a variable dot pattern, so there won't be any visible dot pattern in this printing. That's one of the unique, really good aspects of modern digital printers, is that it's not readily apparent that it's a print. All offset prints are easily discernible by looking at them with a magnifying glass or just looking at them if you're nearsighted. And you'll be able to see the dot pattern close up that creates the image from a further distance away. But with these, there is no dot pattern. There's no discernible difference whatsoever. And we're in pretty good shape. I think we're about 30 seconds from being done. The great thing about watching this print is we're looking at it through smoked glass, so it probably doesn't look very good right now, but that's always something when I think that's sort of a trick that they've designed the printer to do, so as they come out of the printer, they all of a sudden look great, you know, since they look kind of faded behind that smoke glass. The printer prints at 1400 DPI, which is a sort of an average DPI for printers. This particular printer, the smaller printer that I have that I work with for glossy photographs, prints at 2800 DPI. But really anything over 400 or 500 DPI with variable dot pattern can look photographic. It doesn't need to be super, super high DPI to look photographic. And here it comes. And you can see that there's a remarkable difference between the two Cathys. The faded one from the Ansco-Chrome slide, and then the enhanced one with increased color saturation, wider color gamut, and dust removed. All right, so if you have a photograph at home, if you have a tear in the photograph, if you have fading in the photograph, if you have anything like that that you need done, you can rest assured knowing that there are digital technologies that are available that can help make those photographs look as good as new, or in many, many, many cases, even better. So don't hesitate to hang on to those things. Find somebody that can help you fix them up. Get them up on the wall where you can enjoy them all over again. Now what we're going to do is go through a workflow for an artist. And this will be a little bit more appropriate for artists. It's not much different, but we're going to print something on canvas now, give you an idea of the capabilities of one of these printers. All right, well, now we're going to try to do a piece for an artist, Mr. Anthony, and he has created a piece. It's a multimedia piece. It's called Bailout, I believe. And what we want to do is we want to capture all the depth of color, which is a really perfect example because we have these brilliant greens, very saturated colors, and then we have assemblaged cutouts of money, and we have to be able to make sure that people understand this is money out here. So it's a political piece without with political commentary, so without a very, very accurate representation of this original piece, we're going to change the feeling that it has and maybe its effectiveness as a piece of artwork. So we want to make sure that this print is going to look really good compared to this original piece. Now what I do for something like this, which is too large to fit in a scanner, my scanner anyway, what I will do is take a digital photograph of this piece, and then what I will do is go through several steps of the process to make it look better. And I'm going to show you those now. This is how it comes out of the digital camera. And it doesn't look particularly good. One of the hardest things to do when you're photographing artwork is to align two parallel surfaces exactly, because you get a little bit of skewing in those two surfaces, and then it needs to be reconstructed. So the next piece we have is we'll crop it. We'll crop out all the background. That's our next piece. And you can see that there's, or you cannot see, but it's there. There's a little bit of open space around the edges where it was not lined up exactly right. So we need to correct that, and we correct that electronically using a skewing tool. And now it's corrected back to where it is in normal dimensions. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we have an initial color correction. This will be our initial color correction, and you can see we're getting actually pretty close to it right now. That's our initial color correction. I'm getting a little bit of a stiff neck from looking at both the piece on the screen, which is horizontal, and the piece here, which is vertical, so we're going to eventually have to change that. All right, here it is, nicely color adjusted. Okay, now you can see it's starting to look pretty close. And it's the right dimensions too. And it's the right orientation. Now the last thing we're going to do is sharpen it. And there it is, sharpened. And you can see that we're capturing all the detail up to a size that's even larger than the original piece. And then finally, we're ready to print this. So we're going to turn it sideways to print it. That'll take a little bit of time to turn it around because now this is a pretty large piece. This piece is about 250 megabytes of information. So it's 250 million pieces of information it has to fool around with when it gets ready to print. So this will take a little while to do to get organized, but once it gets going, we're ready to go. And I think that looks pretty close to the original. Now, one of the things that I like to say is that I can guarantee, this is my business guarantee, I can absolutely and unequivocally guarantee that it will not look exactly like the original. I can make that with any reservations whatsoever. No matter how good a job I do, I'll never be able to match it exactly. But what we will understand very quickly is that it will look very good, and it will not be very important for the artist if the piece is slightly different, because they will never be showing both of them next to each other, and no one will ever choose between the two, because they'll either buy the original because they want the original, or they'll buy the print because they want the print. So we're ready to print this one now. We're going to print this one directly on canvas, which will be different than the paper we printed on with the photographs. And this canvas is a very nice canvas, and we want to try to replicate the feel and look of this piece as much as possible. So we're going to try to print this on canvas. The canvas is loaded in the printer, and it's ready to go. And I'll use a bunch of different parameters to print it this time, including not printing on enhanced matte paper, but now printing on a special canvas that I get from Epson. It's called Epson Premier Canvas. Now I'll run through the rest of the setups. This is a textured fine art paper. That's the surface setting, and then the ink limiter will be Premier Canvas. And the size. I will need to ask the artist whether I'm going to mount this on foam core or leave stretching. And he's already indicated to me that he wants me to leave room to stretch the canvas. So we're going to add a 2-inch border all the way around the outside of the edge so that he'll be able to stretch it. And this will give him options about when he goes to show the print, he will be able to use deeper stretcher strips than we have here. And he'll be able to use a gallery mount or a gallery wrap, which will wrap the canvas around, and he can paint the edges a contrasting color. He can paint them black the way they are on this narrow stretcher strips. And he'll have lots of options he'll be able to work with. If we mount it, it'll be on a thin foam core, but this way he'll have lots of options that he can use. Okay, well, that's printing. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing artwork for artists. Marketing artwork for artists it's almost a taboo subject. It's one of those things that has very difficult to prove parameters, so that there's no right or wrong, but there are different strategies that artists can use. Lots and lots of different strategies that artists can use. Throughout history, artists have gone through a progression of strategies that have worked very effectively. Initially, around the turn of the last century, not the most recent one, artists would flock to places like Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles, and San Francisco, Miami to an extent. And they would try to establish themselves as artists. They would hook up with special galleries and a few select galleries, try to be discovered by patrons and things like that. What happened was, in the early 1900s through the middle 1900s, then galleries sort of ruled the roost as far as the art world went. As galleries had all this power, they commanded artists, not directly but indirectly, to have to travel to these cities to be discovered, to be given a one-man show, and then they would be able to be successful. Around the 50s and 60s, however, there was a change in the art world. And this change in the art world was very interesting because for the first time, it allowed the wholesale acquisition of art by the middle class. The middle class all of a sudden became art patrons from the result of the use of reproductions. By using prints, artists could access people that had enough money to buy a print, but not enough money to buy an original piece. If you were going to buy a $100,000 piece of artwork, that took a lot of thinking. That took a lot of planning, that took a lot of savings, and for someone in the middle class, that was almost out of the question. But a print that might be a small fraction of that, that might be $50 or $100, was something that somebody could access very easily. So, and as they were able to access that, it turned out that this huge new national market opened up. And the galleries, the prominence of galleries gave way to the prominence of publishing houses. People like Mill Pond Press became all-powerful in the art world as they selected the few artists that they would feature in their catalogs and in their member galleries that would subscribe to their work. And so these galleries then became the mecca for artists to achieve success. And then the last but not least, especially for people like us, has been the advent of digital printing. What that has allowed artists to do for the very, very, very first time, it's allowed any artist to take individual control of their artwork. And so what you've seen is you've seen the fragmentation of galleries and the fragmentation of publishing companies and the rise of individual artists who can market their reproductions or giclée prints themselves directly to a smaller niche market. So an artist can be famous, well paid, well recognized right in his hometown, whether that's in the middle of Canvas or right in the middle of Soho. So the world has changed significantly in the art world, not all because of digital printing, but digital printing has brought about this last change in the world of art, and I think it's one that has really been beneficial for the artists. And now our bailout piece is printing away, so maybe we should go take a look at that. Okay, we have Frank here with his original painting and the print, the giclée print on canvas. And we would ask you to guess which one is which, but I don't think it's going to be that hard to do. And I don't know, Frank, what do you think? Did it work out okay?
I think it's terrific.
All right, well, that's a happy customer, is a happy printer, and that makes a happy art world. So we're very happy about that. Well, this has been a really nice experience for me. I hope that everybody's enjoyed watching this. And I just want to sort of close with a few statements. And when I first started, I was an artist. I was a solitary artist. I only met people outside my family when I was at an art show or trying to sell my artwork. And as I became a printer, I started to meet artists from all different walks of life. Experienced artists, really great artists, financially successful artists, imaginative artists. And we got to work on lots of digital projects with them. And that, to me, has been one of the most exciting and most fulfilling things about working in the digital world with artists, is getting to touch some of this great art face to face and work with some of these artists. And I just want to invite anybody that ever has any questions about the digital world and how it might apply to artists to drop by, call, get in touch with me. I'll be happy to have a conversation with you about what we might be able to do for you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Mr. Steve Leonardi for doing such a wonderful presentation. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I have. And if you're an artist out there and would like to come on Bethel Park TV and talk about your work, please contact me, Patricia Anthony, at 412-835-0649 or Bethel Park TV. As always, please pray that our troops return home safely and quickly. And thank you for watching. At the end of the day, guess who's waiting when Steve is finished working? Yes, it's Buddy, wanting to